Okay, we're recording. Today is September the 30th, 2005. We're at the Jewish Education Alliance, and we're recording interviews with World War II veterans. And today we have Lester Gretenstein, Gretenstein, whose date of birth is February the 21st, 1921. Good morning, Lester.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for coming for our interview. And start out, would you tell me what branch of service you were in and what unit, detachment you were belonged to?
I was in the United States Army, and I was in the 58th, I was the medical detachment of the 58th Armored Infantry Battalion, 8th Armored Division.
And when did you enlist in the service?
July 1943.
And where did you go for your basic training? Or
Actually, I was taken in as a dentist, and I went to professional basic training in Carlisle, Pennsylvania for 6 weeks.
So you had already been a practicing dentist?
No, I was not.
Oh, okay.
They let us stay in school. In fact, they took over the school and assigned us to the school. And then as I graduated in November, they let us take our state exams, and then I went in January 1st as an officer.
Right after you finished your exams and so forth.
Right.
And you grew up where?
I was born in New York City and lived there until I was 15. And then because of the Great Depression, we had relatives in Charleston, and my father's business was wiped out. We moved to Charleston, South Carolina in 1936. And I stayed there until I went to dental school in 1940. And then finished school and went into service.
Tell me about what your family composed of, how many members of your family and so forth.
My family we had a large family. We have 5 boys and 1 girl, and I'm the baby. And unfortunately, I'm the only one left living right now.
Did you have other family members that entered service?
Not close family. They were older and ineligible.
Right. You entered service, where did you say that you actually entered service?
I actually entered service in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
And so,
on completion of that, I went to Fort Polk, Camp Polk at that time, Leesville, Louisiana.
Okay. And what did that training there compose? What was that compose?
I was, like I say, being a dentist, I worked in a dental clinic. And then the 8th Armored Division was getting ready to go overseas, and they didn't have the required number of dentists, and I was taken from the hospital, assigned to the 8th Armored Division, and went overseas.
And that was about what time did you actually deploy to overseas?
To overseas, October of 44.
Before you went overseas, were there any particular memories that were outstanding during your service at Fort Polk or any other stateside location?
No, I've got one humorous little story if you want to hear it.
Sure, yeah.
I was engaged when I went into the service, waiting for my fiancée to graduate from college, University of Georgia. And she graduated, and we wanted to get married, but I had not been in the Army a long time. And the people there the other day said, "Oh, our colonel's a devil. If you ask, he's going to send you overseas." So I said, if I can't get married, I'd just as soon go overseas. So he gave me a leave, and I went home and got married.
Okay. And you pretty well knew that was going to happen anyway. So.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yes, they sent me overseas 5 months later for 2 years. So.
Yeah. So your wife had to remain where she was?
No, she came back to camp with me.
Oh, did she? Okay.
I had managed to find a place.
Okay.
And she came back and worked at the camp hospital.
Okay.
Through my influence, she got a job.
Yeah.
And she stayed there, and she went home when I went overseas.
Okay. Any other members of stateside form of training?
Stateside, well, I was stateside. I had a report to Carlisle Barracks January 1st, 1944. Left Charleston, got on the train, got the thing, woke up the next morning, there's 9 inches of snow on the ground. And we were We didn't have any uniforms or clothing, but they opened up the PX for us to get new. That was very funny to get up from the south and wake up the next morning
If
with
Charleston,
9
you were
inches of
used to
snow.
seeing that much snow, were you? So, and then where did you embark? I assume you went by ship?
Went by ship. We went from Port Kilmer, New Jersey.
What sort of ship did you go on?
I went on a White Star, Cunard White Star liner. It was named Samaria. And we had 6,000 troops on the ship. And our medical detachment was chosen to give them the shots. You have a series of 3. They took 1 in the States, and we had to give them 2, because it took us 14 days to get the
So you were
England
giving
traffic.
shots the whole way over.
We worked, well, we were very lucky. And we had to go the speed that we were in a large convoy, 100 ships, and we had to go like 8 knots an hour because of the other ships. So it took us 14 full days to get to England.
Of course, you have to be concerned about submarines and torpedoes and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, it was that's a funny story too, because when we get ready to go overseas, it said, take off your patch, your 8th Armored patch. Don't want anybody to know. So take off the patch and get on the ship. We sign the patches back on. We would come up to dock and there's leaflets, flyers, welcome 8th Armored to the German Army, welcome to the 8th Armored Division to England. All so much for secrecy.
A lot of stitches put back on there for nothing. Anything else remarkable about the voyage over?
Well, a couple times we heard the sirens of whoop, whoop, whoop going, and depth charges were fired, so we assumed that there were submarines around. And so it was not very pleasant.
That was
because
tense, I'm sure.
Very bad.
People were on, with 6,000 soldiers, you were a big target, I'm sure, too.
Now, the ship behind us had even more, and that was the Aquitania, which was a well-known liner at that time, and that had all of nurses.
So the ship was a typical passenger liner that
Yeah, it was a
required
passenger
for
liner, yes,
transporting
yes,
troops.
that was a passenger.
Was that a fairly comfortable voyage?
I and 3 others were very comfortable, because I don't know how it happened, but we got assigned a little, it didn't have any windows, and I guess the high ranking we were on 8 deck, and we had 4 of us in that small cabin, which was very nice. It didn't bother us, of course. The unfortunate thing, I was the only one who came back. The other 3
So you made friendship?
Oh, yes. I'm already assigned. We stayed with them. We had to after the war ended. Stayed on.
So you're pretty busy getting all this.
We were very good.
Yeah.
And we docked at Southampton, England, where the Queen Mary, Queen Elizabeth docked, and they put 3 ships where they could dock. That's how large they were.
Now, D-Day.
D-Day occurred before I left the station. Thank goodness. Because I don't know how they got on the beaches, even when first. Now, we went to England first, and then we stayed there a few weeks, I just don't remember exactly, and then we went over to France. And the reason we went to France was the Battle of the Bulge had occurred. They were getting us in there to relieve the situation. And crossing the English Channel, they said, sleep with your clothes and your life jacket on. Because the convoy before you was detonated submarines. And they said, if you're not picked up 4 or 5 minutes, you're dead. You're hypothermic, you freeze. So that was not very nice. But we got to England, France.
So there were some ships being sunk even that late.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Arrived at what port? How did you actually do
We came in the harbor, and I looked at all because they hadn't cleaned up the beaches, all the obstacles and stuff, and I said, I don't know how they got on the beach.
Yeah.
My hat is off to those men.
Yeah. So when you went to Le Havre, what kind of staging operations, or did you go?
We didn't
through
stay there very long. We just debarked, and the next thing I know, we went to a French town called Pont-à-Mousson, and that was near Trier, which was the German throwing point. And then we got they threw us into combat, and now,
Yeah.
I tell you what is scared. Armored Division has tanks.
Mhm.
We're riding day and night to get to where we're supposed to go. And you're going up and down the hills, and there's a 45-ton tank behind you, and you're in the Jeep. Well, that tank starts sliding, the brakes don't hold,
Oh, yeah.
and they run right over you.
You want to get out of the way.
That's
Yeah.
right. And then it's dark. That was scary.
Doing convoys at night. And you're not running with headlights sometimes.
No headlights. They
Yeah.
used what they call cat's eyes. They were just two little
Yeah.
dimmers
Yeah.
on the front end.
Crossing bridges, you're on the middle of the bridge before you know it.
It was,
Sometimes the bridges are
but the
just put
weather was
together.
so cold, and we rode for 2 days and 2 nights.
Oh.
We had a lot of frostbite, a lot of bad.
Was there much snow on the ground at that time?
It was icy. They said that was the worst winter in 50 years.
Oh,
Of course, it
wow.
was very
Yeah.
unlucky for us.
Operating equipment and all that, and that kind of temperature is difficult. So, at what point did you begin to actually employ your skills in a more combat role?
The funny thing is that I was, like I say, in the medical test where you have 2 doctors and a dentist assigned to that, 32 enlisted men. Our enlisted men were signed to the various companies, and they were the ones that picked up the wounded on the field. We had jeeps that they had that were converted to carry stretchers, and they would put them on and come back to where we were, and we did the first medical treatment. Now, when we were fighting, I did minor medical duties. I did not do dental duties. They would have a triage, and he would say, do this, send it to the and I would do various things that I was capable of.
So it wasn't limited dental, it was you used your general
That's
medical
right.
knowledge to
That's right. You had
do
to be.
first
They were
stage.
coming in, and now when we one thing about it, Armored Division, we went out. We were always at the point of attack,
Yeah.
and we got hit hard. But we wouldn't stay there very long because we needed to replenish us, and they'd pull us back, and I'd open up my dental and send a notice out if anybody. And if anybody, when we were really in combat, had bad trouble, I'd send them back. We had an ambulance that would always shut them, and so we'd send them further back.
Because you had to be available for
That's
more
right.
critical kinds of things.
We moved too. I couldn't get my equipment set up and torn down, hold up the station.
Yeah. So do you have any general idea when you're in that situation where you are? I imagine that's difficult to have.
You know, you got a general idea where you are, but you don't know what's going on to the right or left. You just know what's in your sector, and so you don't really have a brief for the whole war, except when you might get the newspaper, the Yank, and you would get an idea what was going on. But you personally didn't have an idea what was going on.
Now, the men that you were in with, did they come from all parts of the country?
They did. We had a very, very group. We had, I understand, we had 14,000 people in the Armored Division. And of the 14,000 people, the average age was 18 and a half. Because you don't want anybody, I was an old man. I was 22 and a half. They thought I was an old man. You want these kids to think they're invincible.
Yeah.
And I know that's why they'll go any place they think, and not me, him, not me. And so we had a very broad schedule with 14,000 men, you imagine.
Yes.
Of course, that's the division. Now, I was in a battalion, as I say, and the battalion has 1,000, 1,100 men. And I knew them pretty well. I knew them pretty well. Maybe not everybody by name, but, you know.
Sure. So as people came back, even with minor injuries, they would get fixed up and then sent back.
Depends. It depends if the doctors thought they were capable of performing their duties, they would send them back. If not, we send them back to the evacuation center.
So if a Jeep arrived from the front, which was not very far away,
No. Sometimes we were in pistol range.
Right.
We set up as close as we could because it's very important to get them right away.
So the Jeep would get back, sometimes maybe even hand-carried stretchers. But
Oh, yes. We'd come walking in sometimes. They'd be limping in.
So your role was to help decide, is this person can this person survive with help, or this person maybe can't survive? You're making life and death decisions there.
The head doctor would do that.
Yeah, yeah.
See, what we were doing, stop bleeding, prevent shock, keep them warm.
Yeah.
That's what basically we did. So, but prevent bleeding sometimes involved
Oh, yeah.
a great deal of work.
Sometimes you have to go in and actually, close off.
Well, there would
arteries
be
and
arms gone,
yeah,
legs gone.
yeah, yeah. This might be difficult to talk about, but what's the first exposure to combat, first exposure to trauma was?
First exposure to trauma was one of our officers, a friend who I was friendly with, had to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. And he went to the bathroom, he was coming back, and I guess he was half asleep. And the guard challenged him, and he didn't answer, and the guard shot him, our own guard.
Oh, my.
And he gets shot in the throat, and they were working on him, he died on it while they were working. That was my first introduction to trauma. And being a dentist, I was not accustomed to that.
No.
So this doctor, not the head doctor, but the second one, he and I got very friendly. And he took me over in this corner, and he gave me a slug of whiskey. We had medicinal whiskey.
Yeah.
Guys would come in, shock, you could give them a big glass of whiskey, they'd drain it, but it would keep them warm, get them out. So he gave me a big shot of whiskey and said, I'm looking at you. If you don't get hard and don't look at the face, do the job, you're going to crack up, mental crack up. And he says, you got to get tough. Well, I got tough. Unfortunately, I got super tough. When I came home, my wife he said later on, she was a little scared of me. I was so hard. But that was what that's to you.
But you had to do that to survive what you were doing, yes. And then as you grew more and more accustomed to the people and their names and who they were, seeing them come back injured severely was, you had to survive.
Yes, that's it, your friends. That's why I said, don't look at the face. Treat the condition.
Yeah. I'm sure that didn't always work, though.
No. I mean, you can't help it.
No.
Look at the face.
Yeah. And you say a lot of the guys that went over with you in the cabin didn't make it back.
No, they were lieutenants. And the lieutenants in the infantry are company commanders, and they're the first one out. And you take a second lieutenant in the infantry, their life's not worth very much.
No.
I mean, I hate to say that, but it's just, that's the way it goes. The American Army, the officers lead, and they're the first ones out there.
And sometimes you knew these guys' families, names, and photographs and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, we sat around, we used to talk all the time. The small detachment like that, 32 people,
Yeah.
you get...
Who wrote the letters back to families during this time?
The doctor, the head doctor. That was one of the most boring things. You mentioned letters. We had a censor, the outgoing mail, and you would read these letters. These soldiers would write. One guy had 6 girls. He's keeping on the hook. You write the same letter, all 6 girls. I mean, they just thought we'd get a kick. It was very boring. We had to do that because they would let certain things go in the mail that we didn't not supposed to let out.
Yeah. I guess if something you're not supposed to, you just put a marker through it? Or...
We had a scissor. We used to cut it. It had holes.
Oh, boy. That's right. They didn't have markers back
No,
then.
they didn't have markers, and we had to be sure. We couldn't get it visible, so we cut it.
Yeah. Tell me something about how you would set up, let's say if y'all were going on a campaign and you knew that things would happen, what would you do to prepare yourself both mentally and physically and equipment-wise?
Well, the dentist had, it was called a medical chest 60, which was a dental chest. And amazingly, it was maybe as big as this table, and maybe 2.5, 3 feet. And it had all the equipment, including a chair and a drill, everything in it. Of course, the drill was pumped by foot, and you couldn't get much done by that. However, I was very lucky. When we entered Germany, one day here come a bunch of my men, and they got a dental chair and a dental motor. They had liberated the dental office, better known as looted, and they were looking out for me, and they brought it back. Well, the electrician hooked a wire so that I could hook my drill to it and put it on a tank battery.
Yeah.
And man, it was a regular, just like an
Wow.
electric motor in the dental office. And the dental chair was a dental chair, and I used it while we were there. But then we had to move out, so I gave it to the barber, the town barber. And then later on, we came back for 2 months in that town, and he shaved and cut my hair every day. He shaved. Because he was a proud possessor of a barber chair.
Yeah. Which was a dental chair, really.
With your dental chair. There was some humor in between.
Oh, you got to have, yeah, certainly have to have that. Yeah. What was everyday life like? I mean, I'm sure between the shock and horror war, there's also times that are kind of boring and downtime.
We did a lot of waiting, a lot of waiting.
Yeah.
You hurry up and wait was we called it back then, because we did. Now, another thing was, before we left the States, we had to take a 25-mile hike, the infantry, before overseas.
Mm-hmm.
And we never walked. We never walked more than, I'd say, half a mile. Because we had half tracks and sheets and all kinds. But I guess that was to toughen you up in physically. But you did a lot of time. You didn't fight all the time. We like I say, when we fought, it was very bitter, very hard. But then they would pull us out because we needed more men training. We were no longer a vital fighting force. And so when you pulled back, you cleaned up, you did this, and you wrote letters, but that was time off. So you didn't fight. Now I don't know about the regular infantry. I'm talking about, but in ours, we didn't fight all the time.
Yeah. Now, did you ever? Was there ever occasion where you had to treat prisoners?
Yes. Oh, yes. We would treat them.
Yeah.
Yes, we would treat them.
What was that like? What was your first experience doing that?
Well, it was very strange. I mean, the first German I ever saw was Dad, and he was no Superman. He was just looked like a little old man, and his dad laying on the ground. And this, and we treated him absolutely just as good as we did the.
Did there seem to be any particular attitude or?
Well, by 44. The war was after the Bulls. They basically shot their last bull, and they knew, and we were starting to get old men and young boys. I would have not liked to face the German army. They were good, but they had most of their Russia had killed the Napoleon. And the ones we were getting, but every now and then you get one of the old, I took one time, had a German postal, SS captain. So he came in there and I took his pistol. So no arms, because some people they come in there deranged, and he still had his pistol. The guys were gardening, they were good.
Yeah.
So he come like that, and I said, I just want to see so-and-so, that Jewish people, your pistol, remember that? Yes, I did. I took a dagger. Oh, yes. I took German in college. And if they didn't get fast, I could take a long. The amazing thing was that you never met a Nazi. Never met, I'm talking about the civilians now. Never met a Nazi. So we wondered, well, who was doing what was this fighting? But they were average people.
And so no one ever acknowledged that they were part of the Nazi Party or
Not
politics?
the civilians. Now, of course, the soldiers came in with their uniforms, and we had learned what branch and stuff to recognize them. But no, and the amazing thing with the camps, the smell was visible. You could smell it 10 miles away. So you can't tell me people lived in that area didn't know something.
So you went by some of the concentration camps?
Yeah, we opened a couple of them up.
Oh, my.
Now, the ones we did were not the killing camps, but they were work camps. And then what? People were stacked as high as the ceiling because they died from starvation and illness. It wasn't killing camps.
They were working.
They were work and undertaking. Bad, bad. Very bad.
Now, some of your first impressions were seeing disbelief?
Yes, we had heard about rumors about it, of course, but seeing what people can do to people, you didn't believe people would do that. I mean, it's just terrible. And if you watch the dogs now, they got whacked a few times. You're not supposed to, but they just, some of the guys couldn't help but hit them a couple of times.
So some of the guards were still on the scene?
Still there, but we got there so fast they didn't get out. It was near the end of the war. I got a story about that too. This was, I guess, the end of April. War ended May 7th. The end of April, we had certain designated targets to meet, and there was no opposition. So we rolled past where we were supposed to. We got attacked by our own airplane. Now that would say the war's over, so you're going to get killed by your own airplane.
Yeah.
However, we had some aircraft identification panels you're supposed to put up every day, but we didn't, and so we hurried up and got them up. Got hurt.
So the attack was not sort of broke off?
Yeah, they recognized the panel and just took off. And it wasn't their fault. You couldn't. Because by that time, anything moving on the road was fair game.
Were you able to have conversations with some of the people in the camps that you liberated?
Yes, I did. Yes. Of course, we treated some of them.
Treated them too?
We did, yeah. We deloused them with DDT powder, and I got one story you know what a milk biscuit is? It's a little round white biscuit. Gave this gentleman, while we were treating him, a milk biscuit. He's very gingerly eating just a small piece at a time. And we asked him, what do you like? He said, it's the first white flour I've had in 8 years. I mean, and another man had a broken thigh bone. And the book says, you can't walk if you have a broken thigh bone. And he was working. So the doctor asked him, what's going on? How can you? He said, if I didn't work, they'd shoot me. So, and we did talk to a lot of them, and because we'd been in medical, we were doing some treatments.
Yeah. Now, were these prisoners mostly Jewish, or were they just a mixture?
In this particular camp, there was a mixture.
Yeah.
It was a work camp. It was not a death camp.
Yeah. So you had people from occupied countries
Yeah,
and all kinds
wherever
of
they had been at that time, where they had conquered lands, they took people.
Did you ever come across the prison war camps for American soldiers, or flyers, or people
No.
that were captured?
No, I just don't really.
And so the camps had sometimes dead bodies.
Oh yeah, a lot of them.
Yeah.
That was, and like I said, when you approached the camp, the stench was terrible.
Yeah.
In fact, there was a lecture yesterday from the United States Jewish Holocaust Museum in Washington, and I've been to it, and they've done a good job. But they can't replicate the smell.
No, that's what they can't.
Can't replicate because it's dead bodies. You go through sometimes like villages, like we went through Aachen, for the back of the walls. There wasn't a wall standing, but you could smell it because there was bodies under the buildings. Horrible. I hadn't thought about this in years.
So you had to deal with people who hadn't eaten all the time, so you couldn't just.
You have to be very careful,
Yeah.
because you could do a lot of damage with it. If you gave them too much food all at once.
What was their reaction joyful or shock or dismay or what? I assume
They were petrified. they were in a zombie-like state. They were pathetic. I mean, they had just been so worked that there was none of them that were in good shape. And if anybody was in good shape, that's how sometimes the guards would throw their uniforms away, put on a prisoner guard. They wore, they're like a pajama with a vertical stripe. We pull them out. He's too well. He's too fat.
Yeah.
So they try to escape that way.
Yeah.
But they knew, they had heard from the guards that the Americans were approaching, so they weren't surprised. But they were all the same. They were surprised. They thought they were going to kill them before they left.
Yeah.
Some of the guards took off. Most of the guards took off. But
did you encounter many civilians near these camps, or did you?
yes, there were towns near these camps, and these are the people I talked to. Oh, we don't know nothing. We don't know, and that's why I say they had to know something was wrong.
Sure.
Now I agree that if you're brainwashed, as Germans were, there's no television, but there's the newspaper, the radio, magazine, all the saying this, saying that. After a while, you believe it, but you can't believe this smell.
Well, let's take a break and, okay?
Okay.
Gotta help me remember.
I'll let you remember. I'll let you know.
All right, we're continuing. Now, as we were talking, you were liberating different camps, and this was toward maybe the last month before.
Middle of April, from April 15th on, we reached the River Elbe on the last week of April, and we stopped there. We had sent patrols over the river to the outskirts of Berlin, and the men wanted to keep on and capture Berlin. Of course, the Germans wanted the Americans to take Berlin, so they had withdrawn their troops and moved them to the Russian side. But Roosevelt had made an agreement, and that Stalin, that Russia would take Berlin. So we sat there. We could have taken the Americans, and it might have saved a lot of trouble if we did. But that's water under the bridge.
Yeah.
So, the weather improved tremendously.
Now, what was the, at some point, you say it sort of dawned upon everybody that the Germans had shot their last bullet, or that it was a foregone conclusion. Did that point seem to sink home to you at some point, or was that?
Yes. I think about, after I said, around the 15th of April, it just seemed like the air went out of the balloon. We were just riding up like a stroll without any resistance.
I imagine in those circumstances, casualties, when you know the war is going to end and it's going to be successful, that casualties are extremely hard to take at some point like
Casualties
this.
are extremely hard to take, especially if you had one nice young gentleman, a West Point graduate, and he was riding in his tank. And you know how you've seen it, how to stand up and ride with that. He was a commander, tank commander, and he was shot by a sniper and killed. His father was the major general in charge of the division.
Oh, my.
I mean, this such a unnecessary casualty, but that's war. War does that. And you asked about communications. It's very interesting. In the wartime, we didn't have to stamp anything. They had special dispensation for service people, because we didn't have, so we could just write. They had to be called V-mail. It was a little sheet that would fold over, and you just I tried to write every day when we were in combat. In combat, good night. But getting mail back from home was sporadic. But like for instance, one time I got a letter, and the wife says, "Well, now she's feeling better now that she's out of the hospital." Well, I never got the letter before that she was in the hospital. So I said, when I wrote, I said, just don't do that. Try to make each letter complete its own sense, because I wait for the other letter to show up. What happened?
Did you know what she was in the hospital for?
Yeah, I didn't know. No, at that time I didn't know. I didn't know she was in the hospital.
Oh my. Was there any other? You also heard from other family members. And,
oh yeah. Mail wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
Mail wasn't too bad at all.
So whenever there was a break in things, the mail would come forward. You could get that.
sometimes people were not afraid. We could sometimes get it on the front lines. They would get it to the company clerk and they'd get it out.
I'm sure that was a boost in morale.
Oh, mail. You couldn't ask anything more. I mean, it's just like that was your touch, your connection to home. And you got a letter, you read it over and over till it's falling apart. Then you get ready for the next one.
You're also talking about the weather, the seasons changing. If you went in when it was cold, and you tell the story about having so many clothes on.
Well, Europe, we never had what they call khaki or summer uniform. Because that's hot over there.
Yeah.
But of course, we crossed May 1st. I think we were crossing the Harz Mountain, and we ran into a snowstorm. So, but the weather improved nice. They got nice weather when it starts around the spring and summertime.
Were you able to, with the tank division, you were going cross country too, I imagine. And so you were in Jeeps, though. You were traveling probably in Jeeps.
I was in Jeep, yeah.
Or trucks, and you were having to negotiate places the tanks went through with a little bit more ease than you did, I'm sure.
One time, our division, I don't know what happened, they pulled us off and we went to this big old field and we were waiting for something, and it rained for 3 days. If the Germans had airplanes, they could have wiped us out because we couldn't move. We were bogged down. They had a winch, every one out, then he'd winch, and it was a disaster. So the weather played a part in some of the fighting.
So when you crossed rivers, you had to do it with special bridges. And
Yeah, there were, but at that time the pontoon bridges or some of the bridges were saved.
the engineers were up there, doing
Yeah.
pontoon bridges
Yeah.
and other bridges.
Oh yeah, combat engineers. They were
Like
out
you said,
there.
the Germans were probably letting y'all in too in some places, so they were not, like you said, they wanted to be captured by the Americans at that point.
Yeah,
So.
and also sometimes they had their guns zeroed in on a special thing and let you get there and start there, and then they hit you right with the barrage of artillery.
It was famous 88 gun.
Oh yes,
up there.
well the 88 was the best gun in the war,
Yeah.
best gun in bar none.
Yeah. You didn't want to be on the receiving end of that.
And the best thing the Americans had was a Jeep and a 2.5-ton truck. Those won the war.
Any particular memories about the food?
Food was not great, but we did have field kitchens that put out hot meals, except, when fighting was heavy. And then we ate rations. I didn't think it was all that bad. The K ration wasn't bad, but the C depends what you got. They had different ones. But they were adequate. I remember one time we were coming back, and I don't know where from, we were riding anyway, and we didn't have but one can of seafood among the four of us. And each man had their own spoon, and take it and pass it, take it around, shared the food, brotherhood. I mean, we just didn't think of it as that, but you were very close to your unit. People bonded very tightly in their unit.
Did you ever run into anybody while you were in service that would come back home? Or?
Yes, while we were in England, I knew I had a cousin in England, and I went to the post office to find out where their outfit is. Well, they thought I was a German spy. They wouldn't give you anything. So finally, I got to our post man, and he got it for me. And he found that we were sending patients to the hospital my cousin was. It was only about 8 miles away. So the next time the ambulance went, I went with him. And I met him and had a good time. Then I went back a couple of times and had dinner with him. He was in the hospital. They had better food than we did. Yes, I did. And I bumped in one dentist from Columbia, South Carolina, who I went to school with. We were in the same class.
Well, what part of the time do you think you were performing the traditional, I don't know if you even call it that, what time you were actually
Maybe
being
25%.
Yeah. Most of it being medic.
75% no.
Not many dentists have
And
ever
you
been-
understand that, like I told you before, our troops were young, 18 and a half, 19. They didn't have much physical, mental, even dental problems. hospitals. They would crack it or filling would come out. They didn't have really great big medical or chemical.
Most of it came from
Yeah, I mean they just
accidents and wounds.
sometimes man they get some injuries that I didn't even try to touch because I wasn't capable of beating that equipment.
Tell us about the occupation experience. Well, actually, when the war was declared at the end, how did you receive news the war was over?
We got it over the radio. I think we got it over the radio that we were going to stop at such and such a time, such and such. And of course, we believed it because there was, I told you before, there was no opposition. And we of course was a big celebration. And then when it was, you say now, at least I made the European War, because we're not finished yet. The Asiatic War was still on. But you see that, and the funny thing, you get so conditioned that night somebody had left a light on. The war's over now, left light, and everybody's yelling, blackout, blackout, because you lived for so many years, automatic, no lights. A cigarette could be seen from a mile away. And so you just, it's a funny story about that. On a ship going over, they black out too. I went outside one night. I don't know what I got to eat some fresh air. Couldn't find my way in. Couldn't find an opening. It was so dark. It was black. It was frightening. You couldn't find a way in. I finally groped and found a way in because they had the zigzag to get in when the light would be shown. But you get conditioned very easily. Now, as far as the occupation, it went very well, but they were mostly very ready to comply with the orders and regulations. But there was some sabotage. But basically, the population had to go tired. Since 39,
What city or area were you in during occupation?
I was in Germany for a few months. I was in Vienna for 6 months. I had 6 months in Vienna. And then I went back to Germany.
Yeah. Vienna wasn't heavily damaged, was it?
Vienna was not. It was just like Paris, you know.
Yeah.
Paris was a beautiful city. And they're very fortunate because Hitler had ordered its destruction.
Yeah.
But the general disobeyed him because he was going to be captured. He wasn't going back to Germany. And so he disobeyed. And I went to Paris twice on leave.
Yeah.
And very pretty city. Vienna, same. They had some destruction with the guerrillas that fought, you know. Very pretty.
Towns in Germany that you were from?
The one that I stayed the longest was, well, I was basically mostly in Austria. This was Steyr. That's when they made the Volkswagen. Had a big factory there.
Southern part of
Southern, but yeah, not too far. Can't think of that name also.
Munich or Munich or
No,
Frankfurt?
it's not too far from Munich, because we used to get the radio station from Munich, luncheon from luncheon. But it was very. I had a very good deal while the occupation.
How long were you there after the war?
1 year.
1 year.
We had troops out in the various cities, and I would go down to visit them, and nobody knew where I was. I had my own Jeep and drive and go wherever I wanted.
Had you been outside the country before? So your first exposure to a different world?
That was the first exposure, yes.
So I guess some of that was let's see this country.
Oh, it was quite a thing. I mean, the people are so big. English people, man, I was there when the buzz bombs were hit, and the destruction that they tried to bomb them into submission, but they tough.
You talking about back in England?
Yeah, back in England, they were tough.
Yeah.
But then went over to the French. I didn't think too much of the French. They weren't good soldiers. They were out to beach us. And of course, I didn't have too much to do with Germans.
So you were in occupied Germany for almost a year or two? Or?
Occupied Austria mostly.
Austria mostly.
But it was.
So during that time, you were just taking care of most of the German, I mean, the American soldiers.
Yeah, American soldiers.
And that was more typical dental work then.
Yeah, no, I was set up for every day for regular dental work. No, that was occupation.
Did you feel free to travel about the country to see sites, or?
Yeah, you felt free, but you never traveled alone. You always had a buddy or two or three. You went to different sections. You always had a gun with you, your rifle with you. And I did, of course, being a medic, I didn't carry any guns. I had Red Cross on a helmet and armed. But yeah, we traveled around. We saw what we could. In Vienna, went to the opera and all, but it was nice. I mean, it was very quiet duty. But Germans are one thing, they accept command. When you tell them and they accept the command, they do it. So there's no trouble.
Did you meet any Austrian dentists?
No, I didn't meet, but I did meet my former roommate in dental school in Vienna.
Okay.
He was stationed there, and I went up. I was there for a little bit, a couple months, like I told you. And he said, "Man, I can get you transferred up here to the clinic." I said, "I don't want to get transferred. You work from what, 9 to 12, 1 to 5?" I said, "I don't work. I work whenever I'm patient. I go to the chef and tell the cook I want a steak sandwich. I mean, what do I want? I've been rolling out. I want to go up there. I'm a captain in the battalion. There's only 2 people that are higher than me. In this hospital, they're all majors and colonels. I mean, I don't." So I stayed in the field. The occupation was good. I got a good deal, except for wanting to go home. I've been married 5 months when I was sent overseas, so I was, anxious to go home.
Are there any people's names that you'd like to mention that were special friends, if you do remember their names or anything about them that...
Well, the doctor that was with me in the medical attachment was Dr. Donald Frankel, Frankel, and he practiced in Philadelphia. And a funny story, a good friend of ours here in Savannah, her brother was a doctor, a resident or intern in Philadelphia, and this Dr. Frankel, who was an obstetrician, delivered his baby. In some way or another, he got to mention about me or something, and he wrote me a letter. So we corresponded a couple of times, but there's really nothing we had in common.
Any other individuals that you remember, some that survived, some that didn't?
No, I can't, it's so far I forgot. Yeah. You don't discuss the names for so many years that you forget who they are.
Any comments that
you like? Yeah, well, a couple of comments. One comment I'd like to make is that all the people used to like to say the West Pointers, they're not good soldiers. They always be. But all the West Pointers I met were good soldiers. They were there, and they were the very best. Of course, it wasn't close club, but they were good. Mm-hmm. That's about all I had on that.
Mm-hmm. Anything else that we may have missed that haven't talked about so far that comes to mind?
Yeah, well, the thing that's risen, when the war was on, we could get medical supplies. Just like, say, to the ambulance driver, on your next trip, we need plasma, we need bandages, we need morphine, and we'd get it right there. War ends, you got to fill 7 forms to get a bottle of aspirin. Yeah. Then the other thing was everything was informal when the war was on. You didn't wear ties, you didn't wear. I wore the same uniform the enlistment did because they knew rank. They would shoot the officers, so we didn't want to have any. Your men knew who you were. And then the war ends. Also, you got to polish up your helmet, get your. I mean, for combat soldiers, it was trying to get out, get all that. Yeah. But that's about it. It was a very unusual time. we talk about it because they're so different than normal life, and it's something. But you notice, you've been in one war, nobody wants to go back to the second war. It's not fun. You get the bad things and remember the cheery things, but it's not fun.
Any particular, what being a soldier in wartime, how that influenced your life afterward, and maybe is there anything about that you'd like to say to people that haven't gone through that experience?
I think being a soldier, sometimes you find that you have to do things that you don't like. And in life, you have to get through it. You have to do things you don't like. And the thing is to have a plan. When you're not planning over there, and everything went completely. But I think that you have to learn to follow through and do what
You say that you had to harden yourself, and when you came back, your wife was sort of go through some sort of process of kind of getting back to normal.
No, I didn't take any, but I guess through the wife and the general, I finally kind of without. Well, I didn't realize I was that hard.
Oh no,
But she told me that a few years later. But I guess just coming back to a normal. The thing was so. You watch people that dead, the bodies, and for what?
So watching war on the news today, does some of that bring back those memories?
Oh yes, yes. I watch some of that History Channel. They bring back some of the battles in World War II. And the thing that is, and it is the greatest generation. They took these boys that had never known anything about war or fighting, and they developed the best service in the world. I mean, there was, 16 million of us for the service. And by the time we finished, when the war ended, we were fighting. It took us a while to get there, but and that's the same thing. They tear the army down and wait till the next time.
Do you remember your homecoming? What that was like? How did you come back home?
My homecoming was very funny because I had been transferred to 4 different divisions after the war ended from where I had served in this war. The reason was they were going home, and every time they went home, I was assigned to another division. Of course, they finally found out there was no replacements. They weren't going to send us back to the States until they got a replacement. Well, finally, so I would never write the right. She would hear, such a division coming, she'd get excited, I'm coming home, and I get transferred. She must have thought I didn't want to come home. But I finally, one day, they passed the regulation. Anybody with over 21 months service overseas has to be rotated. And I had over 21 months. So I was rotated. I was not being go home for discharge. I was being going home to be reassigned. So I didn't say a thing to the wife because I was afraid. I really was afraid they're going to pull me out again. So I wind up and I come home. I had to go to landed in New York. Went to Fort Bragg. This guy says to me, "You're not here for discharge." I said, "No." He said, "But I haven't been home." He said, "You can take so much leave." So it was nighttime, and I walked. My wife lived in a small little country town in South Carolina. I walked to the house and knocked on the door. I thought she'd be surprised to catch. And she opened the door. She says, "I've been waiting for you. Where have you been?" They put in South Carolina at that time soldiers arriving from overseas, and I was the highest ranking come in, so my name was the first, and the cousin had seen it and called her up and said I was coming home. So you can't do anything without somebody.
No. You come back by troop ship again, or?
I came back by troop ship, a Liberty ship this time.
Oh, a different ride. I
Oh, 900,000, but it was going home.
So they're crammed to the gills coming back in.
Well, it wasn't too bad. I still got, fairly, being an officer, you didn't get certain things. Rank has its privileges.
Yeah.
And that's on going over on the Samaria, in the hole, they were stacked 5 deep.
Yeah.
5 levels.
Those Liberty ships weren't the best riding ships
No,
either.
no. The name of the ship was the Aiken, U.S. Aiken, and they called it U.S. Shaken. Because it shook.
Vibrated, huh?
I was coming home, like I said, the ship went to the front. I don't know what I went to the front for, just to want to speak. I never got seasick. So I went to the front, and a big wave comes over and knocks me over. I said, I'd go through the water, I'm going to drown. I got the heck out of there in a hurry. And I came here, and I took my leave, and I went to Fort Sam Houston, San Antonio, Texas. And I walked in, and he said, hey, what you doing here, Captain? I said, don't this order say come here? He said, yeah, but since you've been on leave, there's a new one. You're eligible for discharge. So I said, that don't make me mad. So I stayed there for 3 days while they got new orders and got out of service.
Okay, well, thank you very much.